Hey everybody, MichaelBtheGameGenie here, and on today's video we're going to be taking a look at the new Arcade1Up Terminator 2 shooting 3/4 scale cabinet, and the important question, should you buy it? So that's right guys, today we're going to be taking a look at the Arcade1Up Terminator 2 cabinet. This is actually going to be soon to be released to the general public through retail and sent out to people with pre-orders. I planned on making this video earlier today, ended up not getting to do it right away because I had some family stuff to do around the house, and lo and behold, an hour into that process, a notification came up on Facebook through the official Arcade1Up global fan page that the Terminator 2 cabinet had arrived in somebody's household. Someone has their T2 cabinet already, said posting a video soon. So expect to see a video of live gameplay and live reactions from whoever the hell has this cabinet sometime coming up soon on YouTube or Facebook, wherever it's going to be. Check the groups. The funny thing about that is that this cabinet wasn't supposed to be available until January 31st. They're saying that the person that has the cabinet is here in Canada, and according to every retailer I talked to, nobody has their cabinets yet, and the cabinet shouldn't be out until January 31st. Earliest anybody should have it in Canada is Monday, February the 7th. Whether or not it's accurate or not that this is actually from Canada, time will tell. So guys, the question is whether or not you should buy this cabinet. But it's funny, you guys know I have a buying compulsion for these Arcade1Ups. I kind of want them all, and this is kind of a funny video in the sense that it's should you buy the cabinet, but I'm also trying to make up my mind on whether or not I should buy the cabinet. So I thought I'd go through the pros and cons in this video, and we could kind of decide together. So some of you guys might remember a couple months ago, actually last year around this time, I released a video on arcade games that should be Arcade1Up cabinets. And the very first game I mentioned and told Arcade1Up to consider making was Terminator 2. At the time, I didn't think that it was realistic that Arcade1Up would even consider making Terminator 2, as again, it's such a hard cabinet to make. You can take a look at the real cabinet there, the way it looked in the arcades, the way that the gun worked, everything like that. I just didn't think this was going to be possible. Lo and behold, Arcade1Up completely surprised me, and they have in fact released their own Terminator 2 Judgment Day cabinet coming out right now, apparently. So at the end of January, early February, people are going to be able to get their pre-orders on Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and they're going to be able to walk in a store possibly and pick them up. The thing about this cabinet that kind of catches me off guard is, while this is Terminator 2, there's a lot of pluses that they delivered the cabinet I expected them to make, but there's also a lot of negatives. So guys, I guess a good place to start is with the positives of why you should buy this cabinet. First up is the fact that it's Terminator 2. Terminator 2 is one of my favorite movies of all time. When it came out, it was just such a pop culture phenomenon. It was such a big deal as the movies. And when the game was released in arcades, everybody lined up. It was a perfect movie tie-in, especially because it focused on a lot of the things we never ever saw from the movies. Always the part that we always wished we saw more of was after Judgment Day, in the post-apocalyptic future where they were taking on the Terminators. Seeing this from the first stages, the very cool guns for the arcade cabinet, this was a perfect movie tie-in, and everybody was lined up to play it. So the fact that we can do this at home is just so goddamn exciting. The second thing is the fact that they actually listened to the fans. We wanted a shooting cab, and Buck Hunter came out, and while a lot of people are excited about Buck Hunter, seeing as it's a popular bar game, we wanted a classic arcade game, and Terminator 2 fits that bill. When you think gun shooting game in the arcade, you probably think Terminator 2, and they've made some noticeable improvements over the big Buck Hunter first shooting cabinet. As you can see here, we get a taller cabinet. I don't know if you can see it very well here, but you can see see the screws where this cabinet connects together, so we have the extra riser extension panel, so it's going to be a taller cabinet. Anybody who's looked at the big Buck Hunter cabinet, you know how short that was. Also, we're getting a light-up marquee, so all that confusion with the big Buck Hunter cabinet, the question of whether or not the light from the marquee would mess up the Sinden technology, we know that's not a factor, so we are going to have a light-up marquee. And then there's the truth of the matter. It's Terminator 2. It's just a more fun classic arcade game than Big Buck Hunter. Who doesn't want to go around and destroy endoskeletons with those machine guns? And speaking of those machine guns, as we all know, another quality of life feature that they have added here is in fact 2 guns with force feedback. So it's not going to be just you shooting the Sinden gun. You're going to feel a pop just like you felt from the real machine guns on the real arcade cabinet. And then on top of that, it's a Wi-Fi connected cabinet and you can share your scores on the leaderboards with other people. So guys, those are the pros. We're getting a classic arcade game instead of a bar game. We're getting a very hot license title we thought we would never get. We're getting a taller cabinet with a light-up marquee, and with 2 guns with force feedback. And on top of it all, it's friggin' Terminator 2, so there's lots of nostalgia there. That's all the pros. But what about the negatives? One of the biggest criticisms with the big Buck Hunter cabinet was that the screen was actually too small to play the game. Which is interesting here because they've in fact included again a 17-inch screen, which is the same size screen that was included with Big Buck Hunter. So again, you're getting a small screen. And I guess they knew that that's something the fans wouldn't be excited about because usually they include the screen size under the features, but they left it out of here ad. I don't know if that was just a mistake or they intentionally left it out. Who knows? But as you can see, it's going to be a 17-inch monitor. But if you take a look at the guns are going to be closer to the screen. So maybe the monitor size won't be that big a deal, but you can decide for yourself. I don't know if this is just the way that the actors are kind of asked to act, but, you know, it looks like the gun's going to be relatively close to the screen, but with Big Buck Hunter, they told you to stand, I think it was like 10 feet away, so the screen would definitely seem small at that point. And then also, with the Sinden guns, you have this white border that's actually on the screen, making the screen that much smaller again, because you have to compensate for the white border. So, is the screen size going to be small? Who knows? The marquee is a black, and Arcade1Up historically haven't done a good job of doing black marquees, but it also looks like it's the new style of marquee. So instead of the box, I think this is just going to be a vinyl strip, and we'll get a light strip back inside the marquee that lights this up. That's my guess, so that may be better. The next thing I want to mention here, you take a look at those cords. Those cords are relatively long. And we know with the Sinden technology, the way it works, these guns are actually detachable. So, even though I said you're going to be playing close, and these guys are playing super close to the screen, like we said with Big Buck Hunter, you're going to have to go about 10 feet back, and the cords definitely suggest you're going to have to do that. I mean, you see the guys on the screen waving those guns all over the place. It doesn't look like that's actually working. If you take a look at the original cabinet, here's our buddy Todd Tuckey from TNT Amusements. He's got to have the coolest job and life in the world playing with all these cabinets. He's got an original Terminator 2 there. And if you take a look at the guns, those guns were basically standard. They were stuck onto the cabinet. So that's a huge change. These guns are essentially takeoff. It's not the same technology. It's not going to be arcade accurate. So the guns for the Sinden are going to be detachable and you're going to have to move back, and it's not going to be the same experience that you got in the arcade. Also, if you take a look at those guns, they are also jet black, and the ones on the Arcade1Up cabinet are red and blue and look a little bit childish. Of course, these red and blue guns with orange caps, there's a very good reason for that. Back in the 80s, early 90s, there was a load of cases where police officers ended up shooting kids that had toy guns. And one of the determinants that came out there were guns looked just too real, so they made sure nobody could have guns that looked like real guns, so this would stop happening. I don't know the exact ramifications. I suppose I could have looked it up. But in this instance, where these guns are able to be disconnected, they had to do something that wasn't as didn't make them look like real guns, so red and blue were the options. So on top of them not looking exactly like they should look like, in the fact that they're not black, and in the fact they don't work like they work, and obviously there's a pretty sensible reason for that. If these were mounted guns and people were moving them back and forth, just with the very tininess of the cabinet, there's just not enough room for two people to comfortably move there in order to play this with, and there's not enough depth for the gun to be far enough back for it to hit the screen, and then with the technology with the sending guns, it just won't work. So, I mean, one of the biggest detractions from this, on top of being a 17-inch screen, is the fact that it's not arcade accurate, and it just can't be. The cabinet in its small form is too narrow from piece to piece, and too narrow in width in order for the gun to be far enough back from the screen. To me, it's one of my biggest detriments to the game. This is more like playing this on the Sega Genesis back in the day with the Menacer. It's not arcade accurate, so it's one of the things that really catches me off guard. I understand why they were forced to do it. It just, that kind of sucks. It's like if they released a Centipede cab and it didn't come with a trackball, it came with a controller, and they were like, well, it's kind of the same, and it's kind of the same. It's not the same. And the last point I want to bring up is, I am so excited that Terminator 2 is going to be on this cabinet. But I hope you really, really like Terminator 2, because that's the only game that's going to be on there. Now, for people that say, oh, there's not a lot of replayability to Terminator 2 where it's a single game, because this is the first Arcade1Up with a single game, don't worry, this isn't a very super easy game. So this isn't something like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles where you can just quarter your way through. There are, in fact, very difficult spots that are almost impossible to get past, and you can't quarter your way through them. So there is quite a bit of challenge. You won't have trouble with that. But at the same time, it is the same game over and over again, and once you beat it, what's left to play? It's not really a score chaser. Even though it has online scoring capabilities, it's not a score chaser. As you can see here, they have games included Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and then behind the scenes footage. Now, I know they wanted to throw some extra bonus into this of how the game was made, something to do some added value. Because of licensing, the way it works, they could only have one game. So I think this T2 documentary series, they're going to have this bonus footage. I don't know if anybody's interested in that at all, and they could have left that out. That adds very little value for anybody except maybe movie and video game fans. But it's not like it's a DVD you get with a physical game. It's not that easy to just throw in, and I don't know if it really adds any value on the machine. I mean, I'm probably not going to watch that on the machine. So guys, that's all the negatives really with this cabinet. The fact that it's still got that 17-inch screen, the guns are not accurate, and the controls don't play the same way as the arcade, and last but not least, it only has one game. Of all those issues, the one that really sticks out to me is the fact that it's not arcade accurate. I go back to it again, it's like playing Tempest with a controller or Centipede with a controller. I know you've got guns, and it's not 100% the same, but it's so different. The experience is night and day compared to what the arcade was like. Sure, it's still a shooting game, but it's not the same. It's up to you if it's that big a deal. To me, I always want these arcades to be as accurate as possible. That's the big deal breaker for me. It's just the controls aren't the same, and it's kind of a different experience. I know a lot of people are stuck on the one game thing, but that's not even that big a deal to me. I don't care about the one game personally. Mainly when I buy these Arcade1Up cabinets, I buy them for the titular game on the cabinet. The extra stuff is just bonus or cream to me, and really doesn't play a lot into my decision point I'm buying. The problem with this cabinet only having one game is it's probably going to be a data point for Arcade1Up going forward, and it's a bit of a broken data point because they could say, well, we can't sell cabinets with one game, but this is a cabinet with one game that also doesn't have the right controls. So, arcade fanatics, maybe it'll be a big deal. Maybe to the masses and the casuals, people won't care at all. They're just like, Terminator 2, cool shit, I remember that. And they'll just pick up the guns and be happy to play. Anyways, it'll be interesting. So, after seeing the positive and negatives, question is, guys, what do you think? Should you buy Terminator 2? Me personally, I'm undecided. I've always wanted this game. It's one of the arcade cabinets I only dreamed when I was a kid about having in my house. Now I have an opportunity, but there's some stuff holding me back from making a pre-order and jumping on this. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are you going to be picking up T2? And if so, why are you going to make that jump? Is this a cabinet you're really interested in? Is it just that you have to have a shooter cabinet and have been waiting since Big Buck Hunter patiently for them to release something that isn't Buck Hunter? Let me know in the comments. Anyways, guys, thank you so very much for watching. This is Michael B. the Game Genie, and I'll talk to you next time.